In this edition of Art Rocks, a painter whose passion is clear.
I don't know what I would do if I didn't do art. I don't know what other field would be right.
We meet a sculptor who knows what it takes to keep art alive, literally.
People ask me how I got into this, and I say that Willow chose me.
Shakespeare arrives in Nevada and joins the Vegas lineup.
We have one thing that most of those shows don't have, a really good script.
A composer reconciles seemingly incompatible musical genres.
What really is appealing to me is to try to make that music congeal into an organic whole.
It's all ahead on this edition of Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello, I'm James Fox Smith, publisher of Country Roads magazine, and this is Art Rocks. For some artists, finding the right medium to work in takes some time. Ruston artist Julie Cruz has determined that working in oils is her first love, and it always will be.
My name's Julie Cruz, and I am from Asheville, North Carolina originally. I spent most of my childhood there, and I paint with oils. I fit the description of the childhood artist. I've always had, doodling, drawing on something. I don't know what I would do if I didn't do art. I don't know what other field would be right for me. It just never was a question. I knew what I wanted to be doing. So I guess I'm living the dream. When I was in the studio and I was just able to paint whatever I wanted to paint, it became more of a process of finding the balance between what I could paint and what I wanted to paint, and trying to push those closer together. Whether it's still life or figurative or landscape, I want to be really proficient in all three. And when I'm able to explore any one of those three things at any point, it's liberating. I think that I'm growing as a thinker, as an artist, even as a wife and a mother. I mean, it really permeates my entire life. Being able to explore what is beautiful, what is interesting, what isn't beautiful but that can be portrayed as beautiful. If I had to explain myself as an artist, I would have to say it's that of a seeker. There are few instances in life that are truly intimate. And one of those is the space between the artist and the canvas. No one else is in that space. It's such a solitary thing. And yet, you do it, at least I do that, I paint, to share. And so, it's an extremely personal endeavor that has a lot of social implications. So people will come to you and say, well, what is your art about? Or how does your art define you as a person? And it's oftentimes unexplainable, because that's such a thick area, that space between the artist and the canvas and what's going on.
To see more, visit juliecruz.com. Now, let's take a look at some of the upcoming arts events happening across Louisiana. For more information on these events, visit the website at lpb.org/artrocks. And you can find more arts connections at countryroadsmag.com. Next, we'll sit down with Bonnie Gale, an artist gaining recognition in New York and beyond for her signature living structures. Gale shares her work and technique in this next segment.
I'm a willow artist. I contain and define space. And as an artist, I use willow, dead willow in the form of baskets, or whether it's live willow in the form of structures. And I started all of this in the 1980s. I started it with a small import business called English Basketry Willows. Since 2004, I've built over 40 living structures, and they are for all sorts of clients, from government agencies to corporations to schools to private clients. And I absolutely adore the work. It's highly creative. There are many methods that I've used to do the living structures. Some involves the fedge method, the living fence, but this living tree one behind me is what I call a poling structure, has a metal substructure to it. These living structures have a great potential to involve the community. For example, several years ago, I built this nearly 50-foot long tunnel in Baltimore on Pier 5, opposite the National Aquarium and Pierce's Park. And that involved the whole community. Every day, community people were coming and helping me. So these structures, whether they're geared for the public to be involved, just the public walking by, it's a wonderful form of community art. I love all the pieces I've made. The pieces I do nowadays tend to have greater complexity to them, and that's also based on my skills as an artist as I develop. I'm now getting larger requests for outdoor living rooms that definitely need a substructure within them, but the substructure does allow me to really do any shape I want. There are tremendous challenges working with the live plant material. It would be much easier if I was working in metal or rock or some inert material. It's wonderful though, but yes, I'm working with the live material. I'm building space with the live material, and I've got to keep that live material around. I've got to keep it alive. I've been featured in House and Garden, Vogue Living, Vogue, Early American Life, Fiber Arts magazines. I've been on the Martha Stewart Show, that was April 2010, the PBS series Cultivating Life. It will actually self-root, it will self-graft. I mean, it's absolutely amazing plant material. People ask me how I got into this, and I say that willow chose me.
For more information, visit EnglishBasketryWillows.com. In our next segment, Vegas welcomes Shakespeare to the Strip, where his centuries-old play, The Tempest, continues to work its magic. We sit down with directors Teller and Aaron Posner, who discuss what first captivated them about The Tempest and why their rendition is absolutely spellbinding.
I fell in love with The Tempest when I was probably 11 or 12 years old, because I had been doing magic since I was 5, and there are 2 Shakespeare plays that are heavily filled with magic, Macbeth and The Tempest.
I'm evangelical a little bit about making Shakespeare accessible for everyone, but Shakespeare isn't designed to be read, it's designed to be watched, and it's designed to be watched in productions that are passionate and full of energy and by outstanding actors, which is what we have on this production. I'm Aaron Posner. I'm the co-director and co-conceiver of this production of The Tempest.
I'm Teller. I'm co-directing this production and also kind of leading the magic team on it. The Tempest is a story about a magician who has been wronged many years ago.
It's a story of a father of a young daughter who's marooned on a desert island. He's served by his younger brother. He's the former Duke of Millen.
This particular magician decides to take revenge by using his magic powers, and his magic powers are not Harry Potter powers, where you're actually doing things. His magic powers are the powers to make a show. So he uses the creation of phantasms and illusions as a psychological assault on those people who hurt him many years ago.
With the aid of his sort of supernatural confederates, he attempts to take revenge and chooses rather to forgive. And that's the rough story. Teller and I co-conceive and co-direct everything. It is very much the combination of our sensibilities coming together to tell this story in a unique way.
Well, Aaron and I have been working on this version of The Tempest for about 5 years. Aaron comes at this show from the point of view of a father, because this is a story in one sense about a father and a daughter, and I come from this show from the point of view of a magician. I think it's about magic, he thinks it's about the relationship between a father and a daughter, and in fact it's both.
Obviously, Prospero, the central character in The Tempest, is a magician, so there should be magic in the show, but usually this is done by sort of stage effects or a colored light, or somebody says somebody feels something. We've tried to put magic at the very center of it, real magic, astonishing magic that puts the characters in the same place as the audience is, amazed and knocked off their feet. So The Tempest is a famously difficult play because it's a really demanding story. Sometimes less is more. In this one, I think more is more, and that it wants the magic and the music and the movement and the energy. Shakespeare wove a lot of music into the play. We've expanded on that with the Tom Waits repertoire so that we are making it even more musical, really weaving the magic and the music together to make that part of the power of the island.
The Rough Magic Orchestra is our 4-person band that represents the musical spirit of the island. And our band lives above the stage in a little sort of niche that looks like maybe a crazy Tom Waits and Kathleen Brennan style bar. You know, Prospero in this play says, "And when I have required some heavenly music to work mine ends upon their senses that this airy charm is for." He uses music as, again, another form of psychological assault, and that's what our band does. I've known Tom Waits and Kathleen Brennan for probably 20 years. And I was with Tom and Kathleen, and I showed them a book of Willard the Wizard. And Willard the Wizard toured the Dust Bowl during the Depression. And I showed them some pictures of the band that Willard the Wizard used to have. And Tom looked at it and said, "Those are my people." And Kathleen is a huge Shakespeare fan, so as we began to fall into discussions on this, it's so apparent to me now the kind of world that you feel when you are listening to the Tom Waits and Kathleen Brennan songs is a magical, Halloweenish, American, very heartfelt world that precisely aligns with the sensibility that we have about The Tempest. I think Shakespeare would have used magic. Magic seems to me the most fundamental of art forms. Because when I go to the theater, or I go to a museum, or I go to a symphony, the first thing I want is to be amazed. And all great art does that. You sit there and you go, and that is the essence of art.
This is Shakespeare at the end of his career, writing with as much complexity, as much love, as much knowledge, as much sense of theatricality as he ever had. So it's got almost everything in it. It's got music, it's got magic, it's got the supernatural.
Lots of people think that the magic that is alluded to in the play is very much like the feelings a playwright would have for all the magic of the theater. And it's perfectly possible that that's in some way a farewell by Shakespeare. You know, the thing that breaks my heart about this story is that at the end, Prospero has, like I would say like me, a passion probably akin to the intensity that a heroin addict feels for his drug, for magic. And at the end of this play, Prospero realizes that the only way to do the right thing by the daughter that he loves so much is to relinquish his hold on that magic, go back to the real world, give up magic, and take care of business. This breaks my heart, and I think it also broke Shakespeare's heart. He has Prospero say that he's going to go back to Milan where every third thought will be my grave. So there's an undertone of profound melancholy to this happy ending. Thanks to the Smith Center, Vegas has a real commercial and artistic heart now. We are originating here, something that will then move from here to Cambridge and who knows where beyond. I'm very proud of that.
We think we're doing something unique here, and we hope a lot of people will want to see it. We hope it will go far and wide.
We have great musical performances, fantastic gymnastic performances, and as good magic as you'll see anywhere on the Strip. Except we have one thing that most of those shows don't have: a really good script by a really good writer named Bill Shakespeare.
I think the theater can expand us. I think the theater can make us feel and think more, can get your blood racing in your veins a little bit. When you leave the theater, colors should be a little brighter. The world should be a little richer, and you should be thinking about the world in some ways that you didn't when you walked in. But people don't want to come to the theater to be bored. They don't want to come and go to a museum. They want to see something that makes them more alive, more engaged, more excited. And that's everything that we're trying to do here.
Now it's time to explore another of Louisiana's treasures. Each week on Art Rocks, we celebrate and examine an artistic or cultural element with unique ties to Louisiana. We'll focus today on North Louisiana and an amazing historic site, Poverty Point.
These ancient earthen mounds in northeast Louisiana comprise one of the most important archaeological sites in North America. Radiocarbon dating places habitation by prehistoric hunter-gatherers 3,500 years ago. Named for a nearby plantation, Poverty Point State Historic Site is located south of Monroe, near the town of Epes, about 15 miles from the Mississippi River. The extensive earthworks at the site include 6 rows of concentric ridges. Archaeologists speculate that they provided elevation for living quarters. Several mounds were constructed at the site. The largest, called the Bird Mound, is over 70 feet tall. Archaeological excavation throughout the 20th century has turned up pottery fragments, clay cooking balls, sculpted figures made of clay, as well as stone tools and projectile points, objects not readily available in the Delta. Raw materials such as quartz, soapstone, and copper were transported from the Ozarks, the Appalachian Mountains, and the Great Lakes, indicating the culture at Poverty Point included a sophisticated trading system. Poverty Point has recently been designated a World Heritage Site by a United Nations committee, allowing this Louisiana treasure to share the same distinction as the Great Wall of China, England's Stonehenge, and the pyramids in Egypt.
Up next, we're catching up with Los Angeles pianist Billy Childs, who merges classical music with smooth jazz. Raised in a household decidedly split between pop and Baroque music, Childs was practically fated at birth to bring these two genres together.
My dad was into the MJQ and the popular music of the day. Barbra Streisand, Nat King Cole. My mom was into like the Baroque music, like Bach, Haydn, Handel, Scarlatti. What really is appealing to me is to try to make that music congeal into an organic whole. Having been born and raised and living in Los Angeles, I kind of live under the tyranny of good weather. So when I went in 2007 to upstate New York during autumn, I was struck by how beautiful the autumn in New York was. The different colored leaves on the trees, the orange, the amber, the gold, the red, spellbound me. And I wrote this song, The Path Among the Trees, which was inspired by that scenario. I saw this little path as we were driving on I-95 that went into this forest of beautiful, this riotous profusion of colors. And I said, what would a journey be like down that path? To me, there's like a lot of different ways you can compose. You can compose as an impressionist, observing the outside world and writing your impressions of it, or you can be an expressionist, writing from the innermost, darkest places of your soul. You could write programmatic music, which tells a story, or just music, like as math, you know. Music for two quartets was commissioned for the Monterey Jazz Festival, and it's written for string quartet and jazz quartet, piano, bass, drums, and sax, and string quartet. This was a very large, ambitious piece. I wanted to write something that really was written for string quartet and jazz quartet.
For more, visit billychilds.com. And that wraps it up for this edition of Art Rocks. Be sure to drop in online at lpb.org/artrocks, where you can catch up on any episodes you've missed and find information on upcoming arts events. Until next time, I'm James Fox Smith, and thanks for watching.